There used to be a consensus in national security that America should only go to war when there's an imminent threat to our national security, when all other options have been exhausted, and when we have clear objectives and a plan for how it ends. As General Kane testified, the military was given 3 clear goals: sink the Navy, attack and destroy the ballistic missile launchers, and degrade.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Freedom Forge, the channel where we break down the biggest political battles shaping America today from a strong America first perspective. If you believe in peace through strength, secure borders, lower gas prices, and putting American interests ahead of foreign regimes, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because the mainstream media is not going to give you the full truth about what's really happening in Washington. Today, we're reacting to a heated Senate hearing involving major questions about Iran, military strategy, oil shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, President Trump's use of military force, and whether America is finally showing strength after years of weakness on the world stage.
Senator Coons, if you want to ask a couple questions until he arrives.
Thank you, Senator Murkowski. Mr. Secretary, I'm just going to follow up on the questions I asked in my first round and the questions that had been asked by members of both parties. In my assessment, there was no imminent threat to the United States that justified the president using his Article II powers, and there was insufficient preparation to make sure that we had the right troops, the right capability deployed. There used to be a consensus in national security that America should only go to war when there's an imminent threat to our national security, when all other options have been exhausted, and when we have clear objectives and a plan for how it ends. As General Kane testified, the military was given 3 clear goals: sink the Navy, attack and destroy the ballistic missile launchers, and degrade their defense industrial base, and you've accomplished those. But President Trump celebrated regime change after saying that regime change was the real goal. And our NATO allies have delivered. They have allowed overflight. They have allowed projection of force despite not being consulted. You said just a few moments ago, Mr. Secretary, we control the Strait. But it's clear that reopening the Strait of Hormuz for commercial traffic eludes us, in no small part because Iran retains a robust stockpile of cheap, lethal Shahed drones, and they are getting help from our adversaries in rebuilding them. What is your plan for reopening the Strait of Hormuz, Mr. Secretary?
I would just note that the majority of your question was highly disingenuous and loaded with suggestions that I very much don't agree with. From the beginning,
please feel free, sir, to pick any one of those
From the
things.
beginning, we've been very clear about the military objectives and
Yes.
the underlying strategic objective, which is preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
Yes.
Take, for example, the fact that Iranians' conventional Navy, they had aircraft carriers with Shahed drones on them before this started. They had full-on destroyers and battleship capabilities, none of which they have anymore. And
did the Iranian Navy have aircraft carriers?
Iranian Navy had 3 drone aircraft carriers. The Iranian Navy had 11
launch
submarines.
Platforms for drones, sure.
They had 11 submarines.
And you've sunk all of the regular Navy. Great, good.
They retain fast boat capabilities, which they've always had. We understand that, which we can control for and will. We've degraded almost completely their defense industrial base capabilities. The idea that they control anything, you can terrorize something, you can hold it at issue with piracy, as I've talked about at the Pentagon podium time and time again.
Correct.
That doesn't mean you control it. We control what goes in and out, and we control whether or not we have to restart conflict. The president does as well.
Mr.
So
Secretary,
we're the ones that will manage where this goes in the future, and they have very limited ability to set the tempo or respond to it, and that gives the president a lot of options to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon.
The connection between their ability to close the Strait of Hormuz using fast boats and Shahed drones and our strategic goal, shared broadly, to prevent them from ever having a usable nuclear weapon is utterly unclear to me. And my question was, what's the plan for reopening the Strait of Hormuz to commercial traffic, given
shared broadly but
skyrocketing
never
prices?
executed. Shared broadly but never executed because previous administration didn't have the willingness to actually do what it would take. And when Iran was at its weakest moments following the 12-day war, but still wanted the pursuit of a nuclear capability, President Trump made the courageous decision to go at their conventional umbrella and shield, which they were using to protect their nuclear program, which we knew came with threats and branches and sequels.
My concern, Mr. Secretary, is that you've achieved a series of tactical successes, but are on the verge of a strategic loss because we are now negotiating.
I just think it's so foolish. Here we are in a committee in the United States Senate, 74 days in, and you're talking about strategic loss. We have the ability to defeat a 47-year threat of a pursuit of a nuclear weapon. We have more leverage than we've ever had. We've had incredible battlefield successes, and you're talking about a strategic loss, cloaked in disingenuous questions.
Mr. Secretary,
this is how you undercut efforts that could otherwise and are otherwise being very effective.
I am not your enemy, sir. I am not your adversary. I share your goal of preventing Iran from ever having a usable nuclear weapon. To finish my sentence, control of the Strait of Hormuz, the ability to degrade our partners and allies' gas and oil production capabilities through cheap drones, the ability to harass and harry commercial shipping remains in Iran's hands. And their demands are that we recognize sovereignty for them over the Strait of Hormuz, which I believe our president's rejected, you've rejected, I reject. But my question remains, how do we reopen the Strait of Hormuz to commercial shipping? If we control it, how do we reopen it? And your average American is seeing this at the gas pump every single day as the cost of gas continues to rise.
Senator Coons, I know that your question has not yet been responded to.
And it deserves an answer.
It does
But I also
deserve
understand
an
I'm
answer.
delaying my colleagues. But that's the question that deserves an answer, Mr. Secretary.
We do have Senator Kennedy.
This hearing focused on the aftermath of military action against Iran and the growing debate over America's strategy in the Middle East. Senators questioned officials about the destruction of Iranian military capabilities, the threat of nuclear weapons, the security of global shipping lanes, rising gas prices, and whether President Trump's actions have strengthened or weakened America's position. And let me just say this right from the start. This hearing exposed the massive divide between people who actually understand deterrence and strength versus politicians who still think weakness and endless diplomacy somehow scare dictators and terrorist regimes. One of the most revealing moments in this hearing was when Senator Coons kept pushing the argument that America may have tactical victories but could still suffer a strategic loss. And honestly, this is exactly the mindset that has frustrated millions of Americans for years. For decades, Washington politicians talk tough while allowing hostile regimes to grow stronger. Iran spent years building proxy networks, funding terrorism, threatening shipping lanes, destabilizing the Middle East, and pursuing nuclear ambitions while administrations before Trump hesitated, delayed, negotiated, and hoped for the best. Hope is not a strategy. And that's the core issue here. The Secretary pushed back aggressively during this hearing because he clearly believes America finally has leverage over Iran after years of failed policies. Whether people like his tone or not, there's one thing conservatives understand very clearly. Enemies respect strength, not lectures. The hearing repeatedly focused on the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important shipping routes in the world. Massive amounts of global oil pass through that narrow corridor every single day. If Iran disrupts that shipping lane, gas prices rise, economies suffer, and global instability spreads quickly. That's why this issue matters to every American family. People watching this at home may think this is just another foreign policy debate in Washington, but it directly impacts what you pay at the gas pump, what you pay for groceries, shipping costs, inflation, and the overall economy. And here's something the mainstream media often ignores. Energy security, i.e. national security. If hostile regimes can threaten global oil routes whenever they want, they gain leverage over the world economy. That's why maintaining freedom of navigation matters. That's why military deterrence matters. And that's why many conservatives supported stronger action against Iran's military capabilities. Now, Senator Coons argued that Iran still maintains the ability to harass shipping using drones and fast boats. And he's correct that those threats still exist. Nobody serious is pretending Iran has suddenly become harmless overnight. But here's the part conservatives are focusing on. According to the testimony, Iran's broader military capabilities were heavily degraded. Their naval assets were destroyed. Their industrial defense capabilities were severely weakened. Their ability to project power took a major hit. That matters. And the Secretary made a point that many Americans probably agree with. previous administrations often talked about preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, but they were never willing to fully confront the infrastructure protecting that program. That's the difference we're seeing now. The hearing also revealed something deeper about America's foreign policy debate. There are still politicians in Washington who seem more worried about appearing aggressive than actually preventing dangerous regimes from becoming stronger. And let's be honest here. The world has become far more dangerous over the last decade. China is rising aggressively. Russia remains hostile. Iran funds extremist networks. North Korea keeps testing weapons. This is not a world where America can afford weak leadership. One thing I found particularly interesting was when the secretary pushed back against what he called loaded and disingenuous questioning. Now, some viewers may think he sounded too combative, but honestly, many conservatives are tired of seeing military officials treated as villains anytime they defend American strength. There's this constant attitude in Washington that America must endlessly explain itself while hostile regimes face lower standards. Iran openly threatens allies. Iran funds armed groups. Iran disrupts international stability. Iran pursued nuclear capability for decades. Yet somehow, whenever America responds forcefully, the debate instantly shifts toward criticizing American actions more than the regime creating the threat in the first place. That imbalance frustrates a lot of patriots. Now let's talk about gas prices because Senator Coons brought up something important. Americans are feeling pressure at the pump. That's real. Families are struggling with inflation, energy costs, and economic uncertainty. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. America becomes more vulnerable internationally when it weakens its own domestic energy production. If America were fully energy dominant again, drilling more oil, expanding refining capacity, strengthening pipelines, and producing more natural gas, foreign disruptions would have far less impact on American consumers. This is exactly why conservatives have pushed energy independence for years. You cannot claim to care about working-class Americans while simultaneously supporting policies that weaken domestic energy production and increase dependence on unstable foreign regions. And that's another reason this hearing matters. It's not just about military operations. It's about economic stability. It's about oil markets. It's about deterrence. It's about whether America, project strength or hesitation. The secretary repeatedly emphasized that Iran now has far fewer options and that President Trump has more leverage than previous administrations ever had. That's a major claim, and time will tell whether it proves true. But one thing is undeniable. America's enemies are watching very carefully. They're watching whether America hesitates. They're watching whether America stands firm. They're watching whether political divisions weaken our resolve. And in foreign policy, perception matters. Weakness invites aggression. Confusion invites escalation. Strength creates deterrence. That has been true throughout history. Another important point from this hearing was the debate over objectives. Senator Coons argued that America should only go to war when there's a clear imminent threat, exhausted alternatives, and defined objectives. In theory, that sounds reasonable. But conservatives increasingly believe modern threats don't always announce themselves with obvious countdowns. Cyber warfare, drone warfare, proxy terrorism, nuclear development. These threats evolve gradually until suddenly America faces a much bigger danger. And many Americans are asking a fair question. If Iran eventually obtained nuclear weapons, would critics then blame leaders for not acting earlier when they had the chance? That's the difficult reality of national security decisions. Leaders often have to act before threats fully materialize. Now, does that mean endless war? Absolutely not. Most conservatives are tired of endless nation-building and decades-long occupations. Americans do not want more Iraq-style disasters. They do not want trillions wasted overseas while American cities decline. But targeted military strength designed to cripple hostile capabilities before they grow worse is viewed very differently by many patriots. That distinction matters. This hearing also exposed how divided Washington remains over America's role in the world. One side believes strength and overwhelming pressure prevent larger wars. The other fears escalation and strategic overreach. And honestly, both concerns deserve discussion. But at the end of the day, most Americans care about results. Are we safer? Are gas prices stable? Are enemies weaker? Is America respected again? Are hostile regimes deterred? Those are the questions voters care about. What's absolutely clear from this hearing is that tensions with Iran are far from over. The Strait of Hormuz remains a major flashpoint. Energy markets remain fragile, and the global balance of power continues shifting rapidly. That means America needs serious leadership, not political theater. It needs leaders willing to protect shipping lanes, leaders willing to defend allies, leaders willing to confront hostile regimes, and leaders willing to prioritize American economic strength at home. Because military power alone is not enough. A strong America requires strong borders, strong energy production, strong industry, strong military deterrence, and strong leadership. That's how peace is maintained. Not through weakness, not through apologies, not through endless hesitation, but through strength that makes enemies think twice before challenging the United States of America. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think President Trump's tougher approach toward Iran is making America safer? Should America focus more on rebuilding domestic energy independence? And do you believe the Strait of Hormuz situation could impact gas prices even more in the future? If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Freedom Forge, and share this with someone who still believes America should lead from a position of strength. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.